Slip into the role of the enigmatic druids and mysterious priestesses of times long past. Journey through an enchanted forest dotted with remarkable shrines and winding pathways. Act wisely and save your strength in the form of provisions and dice. Attempt to earn as much prestige as possible by performing various deeds at the shrines. Whether it's erecting magnificent rune stores or brewing powerful potions, visiting the mighty dolmens or the sacred oracle site, they all yield advantages and benefits and will earn you even greater prestige. At the end, the player with the most prestige points wins. And yes, that's the introduction of the Druids of Edora. I believe this should be more or less Stefan Feld's latest game, released at Essen Spielt. Alea Ravensburger kindly provided me the review copy here, so thanks for that. And today I'm going to walk you through a couple of turns and all rounds. There's really rounds, I think a couple of turns in a two-player game. I already did prepare everything for the two-player game, and the cool part about this game is the, let's say, variable game board here, the mystical forest. All of these tiles, including the frame here, are double-sided, and you can also bring them out pretty much willy-nilly in respect to where they go. In a three-player game, you will flip over some of these tiles basically to provide more spaces for your dice to place on. In a four-player game, they all flip to the other side, but still, even though with flipping them, you get an immense variety in respect to replayability, because the board will always look completely different. And yes, I really have to say, I already looked at the starting positions here and it was completely different to what I experienced the last time. There is a big debate on the Geek if that game is, let's say, an ideal two-player game, and the consensus is maybe not so much, because there is some, let's call it, area majority going on here, which works really well in a 3- and 4-player game. In a two-player game, in theory, it might take some time until you're really competing for some of these sites. In theory, you can even kind of avoid each other by not going into the same, because the amount of these clearings here, basically ritual sites, doesn't change from player count to player count. It's simply the amount of places within those ritual sites that will be reduced. Anyway, I will cover a two-player game today because mechanically there is no difference, but some things, yeah, we may not see in this walkthrough here, but I will walk you through anyway. It's really a cool thing, and maybe they could have fixed it by simply removing some of these tiles here or so in a two-player game. I don't know. But anyway, that's the setup for the two-player game. I already did basically everything. I already determined which dice we are rolling. Very cool mechanic actually in the game. I also, based on what you are rolling, you will be the starting player, and then in a counterclockwise fashion, so the last player chooses their starting position first, which is why you see these druid, let's call them meeples here. And those meeples, and basically all the components in this game, all the wooden components in this game, I believe they're using this so-called rewood thing, where they're pretty much taking wood dust and gluing them together. So these are extremely heavy and sturdy dice, the same here. Though these are not plastic things from what I can tell. I believe this is really this re-wooden thing. And the advantage is, first of all, of course, you are reusing this wooden dust, so it's not simply getting sucked away. No, you can really do stuff with it, but the, let's say, level of detail that you can achieve with this technique, it's really breathtaking. I think I saw that first in Kutna Horror. Maybe this was even the first game to use it officially. I don't know, but I really like that. I think every board game that is using wooden components, or basically every wooden component, because with those you can really completely get rid of plastic thing. I'm relatively certain that you can do that, and they look really amazing, super detailed. I like that a lot. Anyway, our little turquoise player here is not the starting player. It's the red player on the other side. I simply wanted to show you. There's a lot of randomization in this game, including these herbs here down there. So basically what you normally do, you bring them to the other side, you shuffle them, and each player has their own little display here. There is a variant, official variant in the rules which allow you to do that Great Western style. So basically one player is randomizing this and then all the other players follow. And then I believe there's another variant where you can even pick and choose your starting setup, which I think if you know the game really well, this might work, but it might also really take some time because really plan a lot of things ahead. We are also starting with each one of these randomly drawn stone tablets over here, they give you an end of game victory condition. So this one, for example, asks you to have 4 of these stone tablets at the end of the game. You don't have to complete them all for this one to trigger, you just have to have them. But each one that you do basically have fulfilled at the end of the game is worth 10 points. So that's already a great way. Again, typical for a Stefan Feld game, you can score an awful lot amount of points through very, very different ways. You can really follow pretty unique and pretty different strategies each time you're playing the game. And speaking about setup, I just noticed, I believe I have forgotten to give them, all the players, their starting provisions. I believe that's 15, if I recall that correctly. That's 10. And then we need some more. I also do that for the red player. And basically both provisions and those dice are your main resources. Dice are your workers in this game, but you have to feed them. And when you are running out, then you have to take an emergency turn. And that is bad because ultimately the game ends when one player has placed, or one or more players has placed their last die onto the game board. We all have 13 dice and also independent of the player count. And when you are placing the final die, that's pretty much the end of the round. You always complete the round, of course, but this can really happen that one player is managing resources quite well and doesn't have to go through this emergency turn. The others do. And then this one player has one more action basically. And that's typically something that can win you the game. I guess there was already too much detail in there. I think one thing I also forgot is our knowledge stone down here. So I believe, how is it done? I believe, yeah, red goes to the bottom and turquoise blue goes to the top. And this is very similar to a lot of other Stefan Feld game. This one is basically good stuff being on this track. It's a tiebreaker, first of all, but also can score you a lot of points at the end of the game. But I believe with that being said, we should be pretty much okay. You see these stallments here around the board. You place them, let's call it semi-randomly. There's only one rule. You have to have 2 other colors between the two. So you can't have the black dolman next to the black dom. There have to be two different in between. But I believe I have managed to do that. And with that being said, let's simply start the game. Yeah, we have a handy dandy little overview here. There's not an awful lot of information on there, but once you know the game, this is really enough. First, you're moving your druid. Then you have to place your die. You have to spend some resources for basically both of these things that you're doing. Again, if you can't do either of those, then yeah, you have to go through an emergency turn. Then you are checking the majorities, basically. I believe this is a contest or what it's called. Then you are taking the action. Then you are checking if you can trigger the fireplace that's around or which you have enclosed with your dice. Then you check, did you connect the dolmens on the board? And last but not least, did you unlock any of your herbs, which will then unlock you extra power? So a lot of things that you have to go through, but ultimately the turns are moving relatively quickly, I must say. Let's simply start with the red player. And what you do as part of setup is you're rolling 4 of your dice. And this is also determining who's the starting player. The player with the highest die will be first, and so on. And the remaining 9 dice you're placing then onto this main game board here, or this, I don't know, whatever this board is called. And you also roll them, so you already know which dice you have available for you. There's also a variant to that from what I think you can do where you have also Great Western style. One player is rolling the dice and every other player is placing the dice on the same side. Definitely makes the game less random, but again, when you are playing with dice, I mean, use those dice, right? I like tactical games more than I like strategic games. But again, we have those 4 dice. And also I just noticed I didn't do as I promised. We are all starting with enough provisions to get you started. These are 10, 14, 15 provisions. Again, we need those in order to move. This is the basically the stone tablet for the red player. So they want to have, basically they want to be present in 6 different clearances with their dice at the end of the game. And yeah, it gives you a little bit somewhat of a goal in the end. Do you really want to focus on that solely? Maybe, maybe not. Depends a little bit on your starting position. But anyway, these are the dice that the red player has available. Ultimately, they decided to start here. Again, the other space was already taken by the blue player, and every player can only start at one location. And normally we would now be, we had to move, so we can't stay where we are. We have to move at least 1 more ritual site than where we started. In the very first turn of the game, you are basically going into the ritual site that is the closest one to your starting position without spending any resource. And there's already also some debate on the Geek. I think the first version of the rules wasn't super clear. Do you pay or don't you pay? And I think they already released at least, I saw an English version where they fixed this, where it's really clear. Basically, the first one, you place your druid into this space. You don't have to spend any provisions whatsoever, but you have to go into that very first ritual site. And right now the red player has basically these two things to consider. So these are the two actions that the blue player can take. So again, we have jumped over the first step. We are going into the next step, which means we have to place a die in either of these spaces here into this ritual site. There are exactly 2 spaces in each of those ritual sites in a 2-player game. In a 3-player game, this would be 3, and in a 4-player game, this would be 4. You can't be present more than once in each one of those ritual sites. So once the red player has placed, let's say, a die onto this space, they can't ever place another die into that space. This is really basically then reserved for the respective other player in this case. And again, we have pretty much 2 5s, we have a 3, and we have a 4. In order to place a die on one of these spaces, we have again to spend provisions. Normally we would also have to spend provisions for movement, but again, we could ignore that for the very first turn of the game. And because this is right now relatively far away from the blue player, I think we can go with a lower die right now. So we are spending 3 of our provisions here. They go back into the bank, and then we can place them on either one of these locations here. This one simply gives you either 12 provisions or 3 extra dice from the reserve. So if we would go for this one, we would simply choose any 3 dice from the other game board, and we would have them basically in order to spend them. And getting those as early as possible is never a bad thing, because again, you always want to have at least a die and some provisions for your next turn, so you don't have to go through this emergency. We might see that, let's see, but for now, let's make a call. But I do think actually that we want to place this die onto this action down here. I think this is basically building your amulet. So we already spent our 3 provisions in order to place that die, so we have done that. So this was already the entirety of step 2. Steps 3 now would be to check, are there any other dice in this ritual sites? Right now that's not the case. So normally this would now score, and I can really tell you, if the blue player would have been here, let's say with the 1 before, and red would have placed a 3 here, then we would check, okay, who is basically has the higher die in that clearing. They simply gain 2 victory points or prestige points for that. In case of a tie, the knowledge track up here would decide. So whoever is farthest ahead would break the tie. If they're on the same space, it's basically from top down to bottom. And because blue was the second player in this case, they would break that tie. But that wasn't the case, so we can also skip over step 3 here. Step 4 is now finally we are taking the action. And again, we have to check which action did we take. We are building our amulet, and it has a modifier or a multiplier of ×2. And the way how this works now is we are taking one of these amulet emerald stones or whatever these are called. There are 2 for each of the players. You can't ever double down. So once you have taken, for example, this one, you can't have the other one. But in this case, I believe we do want the sickle stone here. Let's take that. And this now goes on top of our amulet here. And the way how determine where to place this, you see a 1, you see a 2, and you see a 3, and you have the same here on the other side. We have to review the action space once more. It shows 3 of these lines here, which means we have to place that emerald, or it's more, I mean, it could be an emerald, but it's a gemstone. We have to place it on the 3 space here. The first one has to go onto the left one. If we ever pick up another 3, then we would place it here on the other one. And you already see this one here. For every line that you're completing at the end of the game, you will score 10, 10, and 10 points. So by placing this, we might be inclined to find another gemstone worth 3 in this case. The 20 up here is another way how you can score points for that. If you manage to get basically a gemstone for 3, 2, and 1 only on the left side, you will unlock 20 more points. And in total, if you basically completely fill it up, this would give you 50 points at the end of the game, which is really not nothing. But we are not done yet, because we are also getting the bonus bonus of the gemstone. And again, let's move back to the action space once more. Most of the other actions are more straightforward. This is, I think, the most sophisticated one. We have to check for this multiplier here. This was a ×2 in this case, and at the border they're only, I believe, ×2 if I recall that. Not necessarily. I just see that now. Here would even be at one of the corner locations at ×1. So if this would have been next to a starting space, this would have been amazing, but it wasn't the case. So again, we have the ×2, which means we get the bonus of this gemstones 2 times. In this case, it's the sickle, so we are moving our sickle marker 1-2 spaces over. We have made it onto one of these thresholds here, so we will unlock one of these herbs at the end of the round, which will happen in about 2-3 steps. And I think I already have... yeah, I think I know what I want to go for the red player. But anyway, let's follow the turn structure. So we are seeing this fire symbols here. So now we check what fire pits do we have adjacent to our current, let's say, ritual site. Right now it's basically those two. There's nothing in this one here. And you can trigger or gain the bonuses of these fire pits. For example, victory points. You can get some knowledge. You can get some more knowledge. Here you would unlock another die. But you only are able to claim this fire pit if you have managed to place a die basically on each of the surrounding spaces. So again, if red would already have a die here, and we would have now placed this die here, this would then mean, yes, you are allowed to unlock this fire pit, or basically use the fire pit. You gain all those rewards, but afterwards you are then basically, yeah, putting the fire out, or yeah, I think turn it on. No, I think you have lit the fire in this case, so no one else can claim it. So there's really some time of a race element to that. And that's also something I think in a 2-player game you may not see all that much. Mid-late game, yes, you will also see that. And sometimes also depends a little bit on your play style. You can really deliberately move into these things just to make sure, hey, I want to chase you down. I want the majorities, and I want to get after these fire pits in competition. Whereas in other rounds in a 2-player game, you might mutually agree, let's play this a little bit more multiplayer solo. But again, this didn't happen either. Start of the game, that's very, very common actually. So this has really nothing to do with a 2, 3 or 4-player game. The penultimate thing we would check, did we unlock basically a path from basically this dolmen to the respective next dolmen? So there are always 2 dolmens of the same color here on the board. And if we are zooming out a little bit, we will see that the other brown dolmen is all the way up here. So in order to really claim this route, which can give you an awful lot of victory points actually, you really have to be able to trace a path in there. Not just basically, so there's no path between those as you can see, but we could trace the path, for example, here, 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 and here, for example. That could be a way. And if we have managed that with one die has to be basically placed on one of these ritual sites, each of these ritual sites, then we would score an awful lot of victory points. But didn't happen either. Also not uncommon, basically impossible in any of the games. 2, 3 or 4-player, doesn't matter. And last thing to check, did we unlock a herb? Yes, we did, because red made it to this threshold. The way how this now works is, again, this is a completely random setup. Each player has their own little combination of healing herbs here. What you do, one, you place basically face up next to your herb board over here, unlocking the special ability. The other one you have to basically place face down, so pretty much it's inactive, but you always have to choose that. There are tons of other ways how you can get these healing herbs. Oh, tons. I think there are 1 or 2 other ways how you can do that, but there are ways that you get basically both of those. Sometimes you're really in this pickled situation where you say, I really want them both, but there are in theory ways how you get them both. But I believe in this case I already have made up my mind, so I think we want to do it exactly like this. So we're taking those 2 healing herbs now, and again the face up one goes in here, and this is really an amazing ability which basically tells you whenever you are placing a die now going forward from, and if you do that at the very first round of the game, you can change the die basically up to 1 or 2 pips. You cannot wrap around, you cannot make whatever 1 out of a 6, for example. You get the idea, but that's an amazing ability. And the other one unfortunately has to go in here, which gives you, basically strengthens your rune stones. I believe these are the rune stones here by 2, which can be also super huge. But I believe this is really an ability which you can use throughout the game. And this is only tied to this very specific action down here. So I think this is one of the most powerful abilities out there in the game. But that's basically it for the red player's turn. This was the last step of the turn. And again, there are no game rounds in this game. There is no such thing as whatever, every player takes a turn, then we do some cleanup and so on. No, this game simply plays along until one player has placed their 13 dice. And that's something I really like in the game, because it really keeps the pace very much going, right? So you don't have to settle down. Okay, now we do have to reset. We have to whatever return our workers. We have to bring out. No, everything is basically done as part of this playtime. That's really a mechanic or a structure of a game which I really like. Anyway, over to the turquoise blue player. They didn't roll particularly high, but again, early game in a 2-player game, and they all started relatively far away from each other. This could be okay, actually. And seeing this, the red player could have deliberately decided to start a little bit closer maybe to the green player, if that's even possible. I don't know. Because again of this whole area majority thing. Because again, you can really score an awful lot, because what I just explained to you, maybe let's do a quick little excursus here. Again, going back to this earlier example, let's say what I explained. If whatever this would place be here, and then red would have scored the 2 points, which you always get in this so-called competition or contest or whatever it's called. But this is basically scored again at the end of the round. So you determine every clearing on every ritual site here on the board, and you are pretty much only leaving the respective highest die on those. And then you take the highest die, so basically this would then be removed, so pretty much out of the game, and this die would then score 1 point times the multiplier here on the knowledge track. So if the player really managed to get all the way here to the last step of the knowledge track, this would be a ×4, which means every clearing that they are ruling could be worth at least 4 victory points. But throughout the game, more components could there. I told you, each player can only place a die there, but there could be ritual sites where there could be, for example, some of those, I think these are the ritual stones or so, if I recall. Standing stones, I think these are the standing stones. So let's follow that example. So again, at the end of the game, we would check, okay, red is clearly dominating this ritual site over here. So now they would take all the components, 1, 2, and 3, not the player pieces here, of course, but 1, 2, 3, and then multiply this with the multiplier from the knowledge track. So this could then be already 12 points in total. This can be super huge in the end. And that's why I think if you are really for this interaction in a let's say Euro game like this, then you really want to play this game with more players. But there's still a lot of other interesting things that you can do, so don't let this fool you. Even though if you're not maybe scoring 60 points out of these majorities, there are still a lot of other interesting things that you can do and super tormenting decisions that you have to take. Okay, that was that. Sorry for the long rant here, but I believe I wanted to get this out of the way. We might not really see that as part of this walkthrough here. But anyway, the blue player will have to start their turn in that space over here. And I believe they are following a relatively similar pattern here, because they also do want to unlock one of their healing herbs, basically. So they will be doing the very same action. And in this case, they could actually really consider to just place a measly 1 onto this space, which means, again, we are not spending any food for moving onto this initial space, because that's part of our setup. We only have to spend 1 provision in order to place the die. It shows 1 pip. And I think we are also going for this gemstone over here. Again, we remember now so that we don't have to go back and forth. It shows 1 line and has a multiplier of 2. We already have established we will not unlock any one of those. We will not basically connect a path from the green to the next screen, which is, I think, somewhere over here. For example, I think in this case, we can directly trigger the corresponding action, which is to take a gemstone. And we are going for the very same thing with his sickle. I don't know which order orientation is, it doesn't really matter. It has to go on the one line here because we have taken from. We get the bonus also twice. It was a 2 times, so we are moving our sickle 1-2 spaces further. Again, no fire, no path free between the dormants whatsoever. We will unlock either of those things here. And I believe this one is super cool. And this is the same as the other player actually. So I think we are following a slightly or somewhat similar approach over here. So we are taking this and place it face up. And what this does is when you are taking the gather provisions action, basically you get +6, so 18 provisions instead of only 12. And you will also score 3 points for that. And again, this also goes face down next to this one. So it's pretty much the same thing for the runestones here, where when you take the runestone action, you can consider the die a +2, which could matter at some point in time. But that's already the end of the very first turn of the game. Really, the game can move really quickly, but you have a ton of different actions. They're all not super complicated, but making meaningful decisions in this game can be really challenging. Back to the red player. And again, I'm not playing super ideal. I'm playing so that I can show you some of the other aspects of the game. So I think in this case, we have to move. So we can't stay here because we can't place a die on this ritual side anymore. There's already a red side here. So we can move here, we can move here, we can move here. We can basically move any number of spaces or ritual sites, but you have to spend food in order to do that. So I think we are simply going to move over here. So 1 step costs us 1 provision. That's basically the core price to move over these pathways here. But because we were moving through a dark forest, we have to spend 1 additional provision. So for example, here it's basically within the same clearing. So this piece is considered a clearing. This basically only costs us 1 movement point to move there. This is a dark forest route. We know there are wolves and whatever, and little Red Riding Hoods in there, but when this is only 1 movement. So we have to spend 2 provisions altogether. So we have done that. Next, we have to place our die. And again, now things could become relatively costly actually, because the lowest die we have is a 4. So this would be another 4 provisions we would have to spend. But luckily, we have unlocked this healing herb here, and don't ask me what it is. This allows us, before we are placing a die, to either increase or decrease it. I think right now, and again also in a 2-player game, it might be a better idea to do that. So before we are placing this die, we are reducing it down to a 2, which means we have to spend 2 provisions. We're getting 1 back. And here it doesn't really matter. It might matter actually. If we could do this, we could complete the row. Let's do that instead. That seems cool. So we're placing it onto this gemstone thing over here. Yeah, let's do that. We have spent our resources. Again, we would then check for the competition before we place that. And no, then we are placing for the competition. There is no other die in there. Now we are taking the action, which we already know. It's 3 lines and it's a ×2. Again, we have to choose a gemstone. Sorry, it's the same action 3 times in a row, but I did that for a reason. And I think we're already starting to get a little bit low on provisions actually. So we are going to take this gemstone here. We are placing it onto the amulet. Again, we have to place it on the other 3 in this case, but now we have unlocked this row already. So this will already give us 10 points at the end of the game, which is not nothing. But we are also getting the bonus here, which is ×2. Remember, it was ×2 on that action space. So we are getting 6 provisions for this thing. So this is cool. This will keep us alive for some time. But again, we are slowly running out of dice. So we have to also take care of that. Again, you don't want to go through this emergency turn too soon. After that, we would check for the fire pits here. This one is close, but we are still missing a red die over here and unlock this. And this is the same over here. So unfortunately, we can't do that. But again, ultimately, we also haven't unlocked the path to between these 2 dormants and whatnot. So I think that's pretty much the end of the turn. But we also haven't unlocked yet another healing herb, so we can move back to the blue player. Okay, they also have to move. They have to spend 1 provision to move here. Again, we could move. If we really desperately want to go here, we could say 1 and 2 movement points. That's 2 provision plus the 1 for the dark forest. But I believe right now there's no reason not to do that. So I think let's go over here. This be 2 provisions, so one for the path and one for the dark forest. And then we are placing our die onto this. And again, let's go with a 2. That is fine. It's the same action. This is a standing stone. It doesn't matter where we are placing it on. We still have to spend 2 more provisions. So we are also getting 1 return. And now finally, we start to see a different action, which is the standing stone action. So we have 2 kinds of stones. This is the standing stone. This is the rune stone, I believe. You see some runes on these things. And when you place one of these standing stones, you can pick any one of those. It doesn't matter which one. You can directly start with this one if you so desire. Oops. And I think, and I like what they did. It's a semi-dual layered board in that regard. So typically it works really, really well. I like this better than having just a flat piece, obviously. But I think having some sort of a money generator or provision generator through early in the game, this definitely does make sense. So I think we are placing this standing stone here. This immediately gives us 3 more of those provisions, which is cool. We are placing this standing stone into the ritual site. It doesn't really matter where we are placing it, but it can score at the end of the game for these majorities. I already have explained that. So if this doesn't change, the blue player would win this ritual site at the end of the game. These are already 2 pieces that they would be allowed to score times their multiplier they have unlocked at the end of the game. Again, these are all neutral colors, so the game has no memory who owns this one. It doesn't matter. It will simply score for the player who will win the competition for this ritual site. This works really, really well. And I haven't seen this in a Stefan Feld game before, if I recall that correctly. I really like that a lot mechanically. Of course, again, in order to get into the competition, you need other players, but this might happen sooner or later. Right now we are still evading each other, it seems. Cool, but that's not all, because what's cool about these standing stones, once you have placed them, you will get the benefit of all the unlocked rune stones 1 more time. So in this case, again, we come from left to right, we check again. Yes, we get an additional 3 provisions. That is so amazing. And if you tie them together with, I don't know, these knowledge points or extra dice, this can really work in your favor. And then you have some sort of an, let's call it, engine going that will work through. Of course, then you have to go through these for these standing stones a little bit more in order to make this motor running. But again, you can play this game in so many different ways, which is super, super cool. Anyway, that's now really the end of the turn. I believe there's nothing else to do. No, we can't unlock the fire pit. We haven't traced a path from one dormant to the next. So, and we also haven't unlocked our healing herb here, which means we are moving back to the red player. Red, I believe, will move over here simply to spend 1 provision only, because again, this is basically within the same clearing. Being in the same clearing for the red player isn't necessarily helpful, because again, with this stone here, they want to be on at least 6 different of these clearings. Right now, we are basically in 2 different clearings, but we will sort that out before the game is over. Relatively certain about that. Then we are going to place one of our stones on there. And originally, I was really thinking, wow, getting 3 knowledge points early in the game would be cool. But then again, this is the most boring track, actually, so let's go for the rune stone instead. So in order to place this rune stone on this space here, we have to spend, so we could increase it even. And I think we are going to increase this to a 6 in this case. So we have to spend 6 provision. And I tell you in a second why we are doing this. So we are spending 6 of those. We are placing it here. Again, there is no competition. We are now triggering the action here. And again, in this case, we are placing one of our rune stones here. And like with these standing stones, you can choose any one you want. The first row basically works, you look at, that's the only action where the die value actually does matter. So the first row basically tells you, take the number of the die that you have just placed, so 6 in this case, you can see that here, and subtract 1 from it, and that's basically what you get. So if I would go for this one here, for example, I would get 5 of these knowledge points. The bottom row is pretty much a multiplier, so the number of the die times X. In this case, it's really 3, so we would be getting 18, yeah, let's do that. Let's go for the 18 provisions in this case. Of course, we have to place this stone. It also goes into the ritual site. And now basically as it's placed, it's pretty much only one additional piece if they're ever ruling this side at the end of the game. Here it doesn't really matter if it's one of those or one of those, but still super, super cool. There are other goals which tell you have to place 4 of your rune stones and or standing stones, but again, right now we don't worry about that. This pretty much gave us a good advantage in respect to provisions. So next we might have to unlock some dice, and I believe we should be able to do that for the red player, which is cool. But now we are not done yet. So now we will check the fire pit here. And yes, we have a die on basically both adjacent clearings, or not clearings, basically ritual sites that's next to this fire pit. So in this case, we are getting a mistletoe, I believe, which is super cool. The mistletoes, like in Asterix, helps you to do a magic potion. Unfortunately, we can't do a magic potion right now with this action. There is a distinct action to that, but it will help us later on. And then we are also scoring our first 3 victory points. That's not really super cool, but of course we will take it anyway. So we are placing it onto this, and no one else can claim this fire pit ever again in this game. But of course, red just scored their very first 3 victory points. And this victory point track is really, really atrocious. It's hard to count because only the 10s are basically spelled out. But okay, it is what it is. So finally we were seeing something else. We did not unlock the path from dormant to dormant. We also didn't unlock another one of our healing herbs. So the turn of the red player is done. Then it's back to blue, and I think we are going for the standing stone game. On the other hand, getting this potion would also be super nice, so I could show you the potion. But I think let's also show you how this engine actually works. So we will spend 1 to move over here, because again, it's basically within the same clearing, but we have to spend 1. Then we have to spend, I believe in this case, yeah, let's simply go for another 2 in this case, or should we go for the 3? It doesn't matter. Let's place the 3 in this case just to keep things simple. So we are spending 3 more to place this one. There is no competition again. We will hopefully see that once or twice in this walkthrough here. And then we are basically placing our standing stone. And I may already have given this away. I think I will go for this one to give us basically provision and stone income. So we are placing this into the ritual site. I will do that off camera. We will get a die right away. And the cool thing is we get to choose which die to take. And I think right now, or should we start going for some higher ones? No, let's stay cheap for now. We are getting this 1 die over here, getting into our supply. So we have actions available, which is super cool. But again, as I mentioned, we are triggering the roll right again. So we are getting 3 more provisions, and we are getting yet another die. And in this case, do we want to go? Let's go for a medium one, right? Should we, or should we go for a higher one? We have a lot of things. Let's go for the 6 for now, right? Should we go for a 6? Are we placing something soon? No, I think not. Let's go for really a 2. Let's go for a 2. So that's basically, so we have 3 dice back at our disposal, which is of course super, super cool. We are not done yet. We are also now triggering the fire pit because we have encircled it with our die. So this is cool. We are getting yet another die. I didn't even check. That is so cool. So now I think I do want 1 high die. So for this symbol, we are getting a die. That's the number 6 we're getting. So we are up to 4 dice. We are also getting 3 victory points. I will quickly do that, I think, off camera. And this is basically 1 knowledge point. That is cool in the end, I think, but this will cover up this fire pit here. But nicely done. But let's not forget to move on this knowledge track over here. So until we are reaching this point, everything that we are claiming at the end of the game isn't worth anything, because right now our multiplier is 0. So, but I think you really want to get at least to a 2 or 3, unless you're playing a different game. But I think the 2 is something you really want some points out of this at the end of the game. At least that's how I think. Apart from that, I believe that's all. We didn't unlock any one of our healing herbs. So let's move back to the red player, and they really do need, yeah, they need dice desperately. So I think they have to move over here. These are 2 movement points. Again, 1 for the path, 1 because it's a dark forest. So we are spending a 6. We are getting 4 back. So right now we are still okay. The problem now really is we have to spend the 5. And I think in this case, we do want to drive it down. We don't want to spend too many resources right away. So we are spending only 3. Again, we can do that because of our healing herb here. And in this case, it doesn't matter where we are placing it. We are placing it here. And also the number of this die doesn't matter at all. We are simply now allowed to either take 12 of our provisions or 12 provisions or 3 dice. And we definitely do need dice. And as you can see, red really rolled relatively high in the game. So I think we are going for 1. We're getting 3 dice in total. This is 1. Let's go for this and let's go for a 4 or for a 2. 2 is really versatile. Let's go for another 2. But at least this keeps us going, works really, really well. We didn't unlock the fire pit here, unfortunately, so we would need 1 more here, but we might get there sooner or later. Cool. Okay, back to the blue player. We could move in here relatively slowly, but I don't think we need that right now. So I think for the first time in the game, we will be moving 2 spaces over here. So these are 2 provisions. But unfortunately also 2 dark paths, which means we have to spend 4, which is, I think, almost prohibitively too expensive, I think, right? No, let's not do that. Let's take that back. We are taking only 1 step, which still costs us 2 provisions, so we're getting 1 back. Yeah, let's do that. And I think here it doesn't matter too much. I think I will only place the 1 in here. So we could have spent it right away, could have left it, and we will place it here. So we will now choose between 3 dice or 12 provisions because we already have taken an awful lot of dice. I think we want the provisions, but because blue has unlocked this healing herb here, they are not getting 12, but 18 of those healing herbs. Now that is huge. Now we are talking. This keeps us going for sure. And on top of that, we will also be scoring 3 more points. 1, 2, 3. It's also a relatively high scoring game. I think 150, 200 points is relatively easily achievable. Yeah, don't quote me on that, but that's really one of these point salads from Stefan Feld. Yeah, okay, I think that's basically all we had to do. We are not unlocking any fire pits, and this is a 4 fire pit here, but of course it gives you 4 rewards, right? The bigger the clearing, the better it is in respect to these. So then we are moving back to red player, who will be scoring an awful lot of points now. First of all, they have to spend 2 provisions to move up here. We have 2 provisions. Then we are placing a die, and I think in this case, let's place a 1 here. So we are allowed to flip that 1 down by at least 1 pip or 1 or 2 pips basically. And I think instead of going for this, just to show you other things of the game, I believe we are going for this action. But again, we have to spend 1 more resource, 1 provision for placing that die. We still have some. We are not checking for any of the competition here. We're really awaiting each other right now. They're really always moving around the edge of the board, the red player here. So we are triggering the action, which is one of these rune stones or whatever those are. Stone tablets, actually. And you can choose any one of those here. And each one of those scoring conditions is twice available in the game. And because red has this stone tablet already, they can basically double down with that. And that's the one they are absolutely taking. So they're claiming this one here. So if they claim it, they can claim it twice. You don't need to be on 12 different ones. It's really a double up of the scoring opportunities, which is huge, of course. On top of that, you also get the bonuses that is adjacent to the stone tablet that you have just taken. So it's basically 1 movement on the knowledge check, which is huge because he would be breaking tie then. And we are also moving the sickle 1 space ahead. Let's also reveal a new one of those. Basically, this means having 5 gemstones in your supply, which you can relatively easily do actually. But of course, let's not forget these 2 bonus movements here. So 1 with a sickle, not quite enough to unlock the next healing herbs here. And you see that here, depending on the sickle position at the end of the game, you can really score 5, 10, 15 or 20 points at the end of the game. Again, there are really various ways how you can play and win this game. But of course, last but not least, let's not forget the knowledge. So now red is on top, so they would be breaking the tie. Amazingly done. Then I think we can skip over the fire. So neither this or that can be claimed, but the next step is now really, really huge. It's basically, are we able to trace a path from this dolmen to its respective counterpart? And yes, we are. So again, you have to be able to trace the path. So we can move all the way over here. We started from the brown one. And so basically we have achieved that. So now we are scoring some points. First of all, you're getting 2 points basically for each die that you use. You always have to use the shortest path possible. So you can't choose to whatever go crazy route over here because you have to know you always have to go for the shortest path. Oftentimes there is only one. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dice in total. Each die would give us 10 victory points. Nice. So that is a nice jump. So they're at 13 points here already. Nicely done. But then this is a little bit like the castles of Burgundy. The sooner you do this, you get a bonus. So we're not just getting these 2 dolmens here. So the red player has claimed those. So no one can ever claim these again. And there is a stone tablet to score those. No, on top of this, if there is still one of these neutral colored dolmens out there, you take the highest one and score the points as well. So that's 8 more points for red. I think we should be at 20 points if my arithmetics served me well here. I think you can just barely see that. That was an amazing turn for the red player. And they have already claimed 3 dolmens here in total. And in fact, there is a stone tablet out there which is asking for 5 of those. So there is a case to be made to go for this. But of course, you don't want to go for it until you're really sure you can also achieve that. And again, you don't have to go for the topmost one. Any one of these stone tablets that is available, you can claim when you're taking the respective actions. Awesome. I think that's the end of their turn. Done. Amazing job, red. And I really hope you start to see how many options this game has. I really love this game. It has some things, again, maybe not the most ideal game for 2 players. It still works at 2 players. It's simply a somewhat different game when playing this at 2. It's still a fun game, don't get me wrong. I was a little bit put off by the little bit dull artwork, so you could call it green, the board game in the end. At least it's not beige, which is maybe already progress. But then again, these components look super nice then in comparison. So yeah, but ultimately really, really a fun game. I mean, it's Stefan Feld. You can never fail. There was not one game which I didn't like. Anyway, long run short, we are moving now finally onto this clearing over here. This will cost us 2 in order to move. Then I think we want to brew a magic potion, and I think we are placing a 2 onto this space. So in total we have to spend 4, and we have that, so we are spending a 6 and we are getting 2 in return, and then we are placing this onto this again. I want to show you as many actions as possible, and I think we may have almost seen them all actually. That was my plan all along. So we are placing it here. What this now allows you to do is, first of all, we are getting 2 of these mistletoes. That's cool. Each mistletoe, when you didn't use them, is worth a victory point at the end of the game. You should be using them for other stuff, obviously. And I think we might do that because so this is basically a 2-part action. First of all, you get the mistletoe, and then you can brew a magic potion. So there's another dimension to this game. Welcome to the magic potions over here. So we always have the same magic potions available, and they all have a cost from 1 to 6 basically. We now have 2 mistletoe, so we could go for either one of those, or we could go for it too. We can't unfortunately not brew twice. There are spaces which allow you to brew twice, but again, right now this was a single brew one. So we can now decide, okay, let's just go for 1. This is very, very nice actually, because it could work with our standing stones here. This one for 2 is cool because it allows you, oh, that is nice, to get a die and 6, but these are all instant things. And this is really a very, very cool one, which allows us to place one of our healing herbs from somewhere on the board, basically as an active healing herb. So if you really have one that's at the very, very end of the track and you really desperately want that, this could be something to consider. And here I'm not sure. I think I may want to play it a little bit boring actually. So let's do this. So we are only spending 1 mistletoe basically. So this goes back to the reserve and we are claiming this. And this is now an immediate action basically. We are doing this action basically out of turn. We still hold on to this magical potion because guess what? There is a stone tablet which scores you for 4 of these magical potions which you have at the end of the game. And each one of those that you are fulfilling basically gives you 10 points. But again, we are taking this action now. And now I'm not so sure what I want to do. I think we are going for the sickle action now. Let's go for the sickle action actually. Let's do that because we can also score some points. So we are placing this into our current ritual site. We are taking 1 step right away because that's what happens when you place that stone. And then again, we are triggering all those from left to right again. So again, we are gaining 1 of the or 3 provisions. We are gaining a die. And I think in this case, I don't know actually. Let's go for the lowest one here. Let's be cheap. So we are going for this 1 here. And then we are getting the sickle again. Amazing job. So we will unlock this one here. And I believe there is nothing else to do. We will not do the fire. We have not yet created a route. We will do that at the basically next round, I think. But we are now unlocking either one of those healing herbs. And looking at that, this one down here gives you basically 1 of the rewards from a fire pit a second time basically. And this one up here, whenever you get a mistletoe, you get an extra mistletoe and 3 points. And I think that's what I want to do instead. So we are placing this face up here and this goes face down here, so never to be seen again unfortunately, but I think it was still worth it and I believe that's the turn of the blue player done. Let's definitely do 1 more turn or so, and it may not be an ideal move. Or should we go first here and there? Maybe we take our time because then we would unlock this fire pit here, which would be another sickle and some more points. But again, let's not play ideal. Let me show you as most as possible. Right, so we are spending 1, 2, 3, 4 provisions. So that was really expensive to do that. So we are spending those. We are bringing this die down to a 1 because we are allowed to do that. So we are spending 1 more of those. Again, that may all not be ideal. Typically you want to bring out higher dice because of the majority. Again, maybe not so much in a 2-player game, but in a 3-4 player game you are definitely well more, or you have to pay more attention to these dice in the end. There are ways to increase these dice later on, which is super cool. Let me see, where can we do that? This one here, for example, this magical potion allows you to retroactively flip 1 die when you claim this die back to a 6, and then you are triggering all sorts of things again. So this can be already huge. But again, we have spent our money and I think we want the 3 sickle movements here. And I believe there's nothing else we can do. No, there's also no majority, no contest. So we will simply move our little sickle 1, 2, 3 spaces forward here because we will unlock 2 special abilities now. And I think this is huge. But again, we are just 1 step away from at least scoring 5 points at the end of the game. And again, this is not nothing actually. Anyway, first things first, we didn't unlock a fire pit. Normally this was stupid. I think I should have first moved in here, unlock this and then move in here. But sometimes again, you only have 13 dice that you are placing throughout the game. So these are things that you have to do every now and then. Suboptimal moves just to get you where you need to be. And we also didn't create a path between 2 dolmens, if I recall that correctly. No. So we can now unlock our healing herbs. This one can be nice because it allows you to basically teleport your druid within the same clearing for 1 movement or for 1 provision basically. The way how the board looks like right now, I don't think this is super useful. This here, whenever you get a knowledge point, you get 2 more, and I think that's what I want to take. So this goes in here face up, this one goes in face down. Then we have the next choice to make down here. This gives you 2 extra sickle movements whenever you're taking the sickle. That's the thing, not sure how often I will still do that. But comparing it to this gives you the extra reward for the fire pit. The question is, are we going to do that anytime soon? Let's go for the sickle thing again. I'm not really playing ideal here, but again, we have unlocked some cool abilities and let's try to not forget them. Cool stuff, but that's basically the end of the turn of the red player. Over to blue. They are moving over here. They have to spend 2 provisions. And I think in this case, let's spend 3 provisions because we are placing the 3 die in here in total. So we are placing it here onto our rune stone. Oh, stone tablet thing, right? That was what it's called. Again, there is no such thing as a fire pit right now. We are getting there. Not sure how soon, but we might be getting there sooner or later. But anyway, we are taking one of these stone tablets. And as these standing stones seems to be our game, I think I want this here. So we are claiming this. We have to still compete it. We are gaining the bonus, so we are getting one more mistletoe. This is always nice. And we will also unlock yet another die. So let's simply go for the 3 here. So dice-wise, I think we are doing really, really well. Let's reveal our next tablet here. Okay, so that was that. I think we are not claiming the fire just yet. No, unfortunately not, but we will now unlock the dolmen path basically. And here is the point where we have to trace the shortest path. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I cannot do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, unfortunately. No, it's the 4, but it's still 8 points. I mean, I take that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We are also claiming this one. It's the second one, so we are gaining 6 more points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Almost there. We are also claiming those dolmens here, of course, taking it away from the other players. And I believe that's also the end of the turn for the blue player. Nice. In theory, red has a problem now because they're down to 1 die. And if they don't do anything right now where they would get a die, then they have to take the emergency action. Again, the emergency action really says you leave your druid where he is, and then you take basically, I believe, 6 provisions and 1 die. You're never stuck in this game, but again, you really want to avoid that as much as possible. But I think there is a way how we can get around that. At least I thought my plan was to move in here actually, but of course we already have unlocked basically both of these spaces on our amulet. Okay, I didn't really calculate that through, so there could be a point to be made now, really now, to move back. Moving back is usually never a great thing, and ultimately I really want to show you the area majority. I mean, we could move in here maybe. On the other hand, we could also move in there. That could work actually. This could work because we can get 2 dice there. And yeah, let's do that. Super expensive, I believe, but we should be able to afford that. But then we are stuck with food. Okay, a lot of things that are going wrong here, but I will do it anyway because I believe I will end my playthrough walkthrough relatively quickly anyway. So I think we're really moving super fast now. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I think it doesn't matter too much other than this is now, let's say, within the same clearing. So we're moving 1, 2, 3 spaces over here. So that's 3 alone, but it's a 4th one because of the dark forest here. This is still the same clearing, which is cool. So it's 4 points we have to spend, or 4 provisions we have to spend here. Then we take the 6 and drill it down to a 4. I think we need that. So we only have to spend basically 4 now. So again, we are getting 2 back. So we are down to only 4 provisions. That is frightening. But we are placing that die over here. So that is nice. So we see the very first competition. Before we trigger the action, we will check who has the highest die. It's the red player, so they will score 2 points. If they would go in there and now place a 1, blue would still get the 2 points because you simply check the majority and you don't care whose turn it is. But in this case, that is all fine. Red has won that competition, so they immediately get 1, 2 more points for that. Nicely done. Then we are triggering the action, and the action was a standing stone. We have to go for this one because we need dice. So I will place it into the ritual side. And this is now interesting because again, if this would be the end state of the game, 4 versus 2. Again, we would remove at the end of the game this die basically out of the game, and these 3 things would now go to the red player to score them points equal to their multiplier on the knowledge track. So this in conjunction was a really cool thing to do. But anyway, we are taking our 2 dice because again, we get that bonus twice. First for placing that stone, and then we are triggering the standing stone area again. And I think in this case, we really want to go for a super cheap one and for the 4. So we have some more dice at our disposal next round. That is cool. But I believe that's not all. I think. No, they didn't do that. Oh, I wasn't thinking straight. Originally, I thought, yeah, we can trace the blue to the blue, but of course we don't have dice in there. We can still manage to do that actually. So we can, I think, move back further up and maybe also claim some more of these majorities. So maybe that's the game for the red player, right? And there's still stuff to be done here. So that is cool. This one, maybe not. Actually, this could be bad, but we can also move up there. So there are definitely ways how we can achieve that. Super cool, but yeah, we are not gaining any sort of points for this path between those 2 dolmens, but it is what it is. Then it's back to the blue player, and again, I think let's go for a not super optimal turn, right? So we are moving 1-2 spaces over here. We have to give +1 because of the dark forest, so that's 3 provisions, and I think that's simply for the heck of it, we are placing our 6 into this space, so we have to spend 6 more of those. Because we can generate resources like crazy, we should be good. Again, there is no majority in this one. We will score the fire, but let's first of all do the action here basically, which is one of those rune stones. And I think in this case, we want to place this rune stone here. So it's basically die value -1. So in this case, it's 5 movements on the knowledge track. This goes onto the ritual side. This allows the blue player to move 5 spaces forward. That's huge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are now at our multiplier of 2. So every ritual site that we are ruling at the end of the game could give us basically twice the number of things in there. That's already, I think, a good starting point. Again, between 2 and 3 is already quite okay. If you make it to 4, that's of course better. But then you also have to make sure you are basically dominating all of these sites, right? And then, yeah, I guess we have surrounded this fire pit over here. So we are getting 1 sickle, 1 mistletoe. So let's quickly do the mistletoe. The sickle doesn't give us anything right now, but 6 points, of course, I take it. Let's cover it up. I mean, those 4s are really huge. Now I think we're even in the lead, moving up to 26 points, which should be here. Nicely done. We haven't traced a path to any one of these dolmens, but I still think this was worth it. And that's basically how you play the Druids of Edora. I really like the design. It's super crunchy decisions. You have to balance your resources. I mean, look at it. The red player is down to only 4 provisions. 2 dice is okay, but I think from where they are right now, they have to do something. In theory, they could move in here, for example, because this could give them basically 1 mistletoe, and with 1 mistletoe they now get basically 2 of the magic potions, because there is a ×2, and again he already has 1 mistletoe, though that could work for them in the end, but not sure if that's what they want to do. They could also, yeah, I think resource wise could be actually problematic for the red player, because there are no immediate things nearby. Yes, they could go for one of those, for example, for a bonus, because there are bonuses here for these stone tablets. If you take either one, this or that, you can also then claim 3 provisions, for example. But again, that's something that you have to balance, not just after points. You really don't want to get stuck. I believe this is really punishing, unless you can make sure, or you are sure, that at least one other player also will be stuck for 1 round, basically taking the emergency action. But I don't think that this currently is a major problem for the blue player. They really still have an awful lot of resources. They have these dice, and that's basically where the die roll can really affect your playing style. If you get the low dice, and yes, you may not get the majorities, but at least you will be fine for resource. You don't have to spend that many provisions, or that's really what this kind. That's why I really appreciate the variance that they put in there, so that you can more or less equal out all those randomness. But then again, I like the tactical approach in a game like this. You're basically given something and you have to do the best out of this. I really like that a lot. But it's also cool that they have given you the option to say, if you don't like that, you can change that. Cool. And again, you play until one player has placed, or at least one player has placed their 13th die on the board. You always complete the round, so you remember who the starting player was, and then you do some final end of game scoring basically. For every 6 provisions you get a point, for every die that you have still left, but it's really not a good return of invest here, and each of these mistletoes is worth a point depending on where you are on the sickle track. For every completed runestones you get 10 points. I already explained the amulet, which can score you up to 50 points. That is huge. And then the, let's call it, majority scoring for the shrines. And again, this example here alone, I think they have one player who scored, I don't know, 68 points, and another player basically scored 7 points. It doesn't mean you lose the game. And we had that during the last 3-player game I played. I think someone was really getting 50 points something out of this. And I think I more or less only got maybe 20 or so, but I was still winning over that player because I was doing other things. My sickle track was more advanced, for example. I think I had one more of these tablets, for example, I completed. So that's really cool. You can win this game in various ways, and it really, really works well. There is no, at least from what I've not really played it 20 times yet, but I haven't really distinguished a clear winning strategy where you have to go for that. I think you want to score something from everything. You have definitely 1 or 2, let's say, strong suits, but then again, I don't think there is this one thing where I say you have to go for these majorities, for example. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed my little walk through here. I think it was a relatively long one in the end, but I really wanted to show you as much as possible. There were definitely things I wasn't able to show you. You haven't seen all those healing herbs. There are really still a ton of these magical potions out there, more of these stone tablets. There are some more spaces, but I believe action-wise you may have seen them all. I think maybe not this one where you're gaining the actual, what is it, the knowledge points down here. Was there one actually? Yeah, here it was, but I didn't go for it. But again, I think you get the idea. When you place die there, you basically get 3 steps on the knowledge track. Let me know what you think. Again, I really hope it was somewhat helpful to you. And yeah, I think it's close to Christmas here in Germany, and I think rest of the world. If you don't watch any one of my videos between then, I might still be able to record one more video before the Christmas break, basically. But if you are not able to chime in, I really wish you a nice Christmas celebration, nice holidays. Even if you don't celebrate it, I still hope you're finding some time to whatever, cool down, spend time with your friends and families, and get safe into the next year. Again, if we don't see each other or hear from each other before that, I really wish you a great start in 2026. And yeah, also huge shout out to all of my patrons and channel members. You guys are truly amazing. Yeah, super support. I highly appreciate that. So if you want to support my little channel, check out my Patreon. You can directly join me here on YouTube. You can leave a little donation with a thanks button below the video. Like and subscribe, leave a comment, also super helpful and highly appreciated. And yeah, with that being said, hope to see you soon in one of my other videos, and until then, bye bye.